What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL rankings video. In this video, my top 20 interior defensive linemen entering the 2021 NFL season. Number 20 to number 1, my top 20 defensive linemen in football today. Before I give you my top 20 interior defensive linemen in the NFL, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more bottom line view rankings just like this. And make sure to head over to Patreon starting at $3 a month to get the rest of the top 32. Numbers 21 through 32 are only for patrons, so head over there for the extended list. Kicking off the top 20 with perhaps a surprise player that I feel like not a lot of you guys actually know, and that is John Franklin-Myers of the New York Jets. John Franklin-Myers kind of came out of nowhere, but if you watch this guy, you'll understand what I'm talking about with his talent to get after the quarterback. He has rare first step quickness for an interior defensive lineman. He has already become one of the best pure pass rushers on the interior defensive line in the NFL. When I watch this guy, he bullies and he just absolutely blows by centers, guards, and anybody who's blocking him. He is a force, and I expect him to be a force for a very long time for the New York Jets. He just impresses me every single rep he gets as a pass rusher. Those hands, the way he works his hands along with that burst is just so rare for such a big human being. He is already, in my opinion, a top 20 player. The only reason he isn't higher is because we have a lack of snaps on him, a lack of seasons on him on tape. And secondly, he is a little bit of a pass rush only type player, so situational player. But I believe he is capable versus the run. And as long as he continues to show what he has, he's going to get more and more reps to play on every down within this defense. But I'm telling you, him beside QUINNEN Williams and now Carl Lawson, that is going to be dangerous. This guy is something else. If you don't know him, go check him out on YouTube. Even just look at his highlights. He is fantastic. At number 19, David ONYEMATA of the New Orleans Saints. ONYEMATA of the Saints is a former CFLer, but he has developed into one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league when it comes to being a well-rounded player on the inside for the Saints defense. He plays on pretty much every situation, every down for the Saints. He is known for his pass rush ability where he put up some sacks this year, and I do feel like he's the most underrated player on the Saints roster. He is a very good player. I think there's a reason they let go of Sheldon Rankins, because they believe in this guy as their lead horse on the interior to play more snaps, because he's shown he can be a force as a pass rusher, but he also has a little bit more of a well-rounded game to now put himself into the top 20 interior defensive lineman in the league. I expect him to come onto the scene this year and really carry that defensive line as Cameron Jordan gets a little bit older and we're seeing Marcus Davenport develop. Obviously, they lost Trey Hendrickson, but I don't think they'll be missing much in the inside because this guy is really good. At number 18, NDAMUKONG Suh of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Suh to me is a bona fide Hall of Famer, and there's no even stutter within it. He is a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. We saw NDAMUKONG Suh really turn it on when the moments were the brightest this season, whether it was in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, in the NFC Championship game. Throughout the playoffs, he was a force, but also throughout the season, he was a force. Of course, it helped him in the playoffs. Once VITA came back, it took a little bit of a load off of his shoulders as a run defender and a little bit as a pass rusher. But we saw him contribute the most pressures in the playoffs of any interior defensive lineman. We saw him in the regular season without VITA put up 6 sacks. We saw him overall have one of his best seasons he's had in a while, and he played more than any player at his position this year. We're talking about a mid-30-year-old defensive lineman who's played season after season near 1,000 snaps. This guy is a workhorse. He did not miss a game. He barely missed a snap, a play, whatever. He plays on every situation, every down he can. He is an absolute monster still versus the run, where his losses are stalemates. He never loses a snap versus the run. Never, ever. And he's still playing at a very high level. He's not quite the force as a pass rusher he was, but again, he did have still some sacks. He still put up pressures. He's still a force. And the other thing with Suh is he is psychologically a force. He brings a mentality to a defense. He brings leadership, and he gets in the quarterback's head. Aaron Rodgers. At number 17, Calais Campbell of the Baltimore Ravens. Calais Campbell has taken a step back, in my opinion. Most of it coming from the injury front, where he wasn't able to play on every down, and he wasn't able to stick around for every game because his body a little bit is deteriorating before our eyes as an older player on the defensive line. Calais Campbell is still fantastic and does deserve to be in the top 20 for sure, as he's still one of the league's best run defenders there is. He actually led the NFL in run stop percentage at his position. So even though the pure stats weren't there in terms of we didn't see the same amount of pressure, the same amount of pass rush ability, we didn't see the pure numbers in terms of the run stopping ability, but when he played on a percentage basis, the statistics show you and the analytics line up that this guy is still playing at a very high level. Calais Campbell, I've been a fan of for a very long time before he was even kind of recognized as one of the best players at his position. I just love his length. I love his power, his strength. He bullies people. He's still an excellent run defender. I think he'll show more as a pass rusher this year. And the thing is, Baltimore is really going to have to rely on him, and even did last year, to get that interior push. And I feel like he was the difference in that game versus the Titans this year, where they missed a guy like him a year ago in that divisional round. But this year, he was the difference to holding Derrick Henry to what they were able to hold him to. So Calais Campbell, still a very good player despite the injuries, and deserves to be in the top 20. At number 16, J.J. Watt. The legendary J.J. Watt is still a top 20 interior player. I do not include him as an edge defender, as I know that PFF does, and other places and other people believe he's a edge player. I've always kind of looked him as an interior defensive lineman, and I do believe that's kind of where he's going to be playing more so in Arizona than anywhere else, which I think is going to suit his play more, because I think he's lost quickness, he's lost speed, and he's lost a little bit of athleticism, where he used to be, the reason he was like one of the best defensive players of all time is because he had freakish strength, a freakish motor, and he had incredible athleticism for his size. He doesn't have that as much anymore, but he's such a crafty player. He's so technically sound. He's still very strong. The only thing with Watt is, I think if you pull back on the snaps and allow him to be a little bit more energized, I think you're going to get more efficiency from him, because I don't think he's the workhorse he used to be. So to maximize that motor and maximize that energy, I think you need to hold the snaps back. So Watt is still a force, but I think he needs to be surrounded by a bit more, which he will be in Arizona, because last year in Houston, teams would double him and he wasn't really getting the same pressure that he used to despite the double teams. Last year, there was no one to help him, no one to take pressure off of him, no one to get a pressure for the Texans other than Watt, and that really hurt his production as well. And I think those two things, the snaps and then help like Chandler Jones, that's going to really allow J.J. Watt to put up the production and the stats that we're used to seeing from J.J. Watt. But still a very good player, and as long as he can stay healthy, he'll still be one of the top 20 in the league. At number 15, Daron Payne of the Washington football team. Payne is coming to town when you play the Washington football interior defensive line, because Payne is the best run stuffer in football, at least from a year ago. He led the NFL in run stops, and he was a huge reason Washington was a force on the defensive line, because Payne plays as that true nose tackle, so he takes on multiple blockers every play. He opens up the avenues for a Chase Young, for a Jonathan Allen, for a Montez Sweat to get pressure after the quarterback. He's not really a pass rusher, although he's not bad as a bull rusher and a power force in the middle. He's more so that eat up blocks, and then not just eat up blocks, but make run stops at the line or behind the line by himself. He's a one-man wrecking crew when it comes to the run game, and that's why he is already, to me, a top 15 interior defensive lineman in the league, and I think he'll only get better as he develops as a pass rusher. At number 14, Kenny Clark of the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Clark is a big nose tackle. I love this guy. You know I love this guy. If you watch the channel, if you watch last year's rankings, I had him in the top 5, maybe even the top 3. And now you're asking, Mitch, why is he so low now? Well, he had a down year. He had a down year for Kenny Clark's standards. And the thing I love about Kenny Clark is what we didn't witness in 2020. What I loved about him last year is that he could not only stuff the run as a big nose tackle, but he could also get after the quarterback, sack the quarterback, and create pressure like no other at his position, at nose tackle. And he was the best nose tackle in the league last year. This year, I think he's lost his title for that position, but he's still good enough, and he's proven over the course of his career that he is a very good player. So I could only move him down so low, despite his production not being on the level of, let's say, a guy like Payne, who was the last pick. So I think Kenny Clark is still phenomenal. I just think his production was down for whatever reason. Maybe that was due to injury. Maybe that was due to the scheme, due to the players around him, due to him taking up more blockers because teams were giving him more respect, opening up other avenues for other players like, let's say, a Rashawn Gary, who had a good year this year. So yes, Kenny Clark is still very good. I just don't think the production matched the name and the player that I know him to be this year, but he will probably bounce back in 2021. At number 13, Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. Simmons came on this year as a breakout player. We knew that he had talent as a first-round pick, as a guy that probably went too late in the draft for his talent. Simmons combines great power and size with also good hands and a good pass rush feel for an interior defensive lineman. I feel like he's one of those rare players who could play about just any scheme in the league. If you wanted him to, he could play an interior D end, he could play an interior D tackle, he could play 3, he could play 4, he could play nose, I think, even if you need him to. I feel like Simmons is just a well-rounded interior player, and I think what impresses me the most is he put up production, he put up stats without really having talent around him taking pressure off of him, constantly getting double teams, constantly being the guy that the offensive line is really resorting attention to. So that is the true sign of a great interior lineman, is when despite the attention, they're still putting up big time stats. So Simmons is just beginning, and I expect him to continue to improve in 2021. At number 12, Quinnen Williams of the New York Jets. Quinnen Williams is a rare specimen at this position, and Quinnen Williams, I feel, is going to be one of those rare players who not only is an elite run defender, but also an elite pass rusher from this position for many, many years. He has phenomenal strength, like out of this world, beast mode type of power. And I think he is so young and kind of, I feel in his rookie year lacked a little bit of maturity. But once that switch went off, we saw a next level performer in the interior defensive line. He ranked amongst the league's best in every category you like from an interior defensive lineman, and he's just getting started. That light just went on. This guy is phenomenal, great athlete. I think he's going to be one of the best players and will rank inside the top 10 very, very soon for the New York Jets. At number 11, Jonathan Allen of the Washington football team. While Daron Payne is that space eater nose tackle, Allen is the guy that goes to work with quick hands and the ability to just make guards and centers look dumb with his ability to turn them sideways and turn them all the way around. This guy dominated multiple games on the interior of this defensive line. And yes, he does get help from other players on the D-line, on the edge, all that. That's fantastic. But I thought he really took up a large role of what they were missing in Matt Ioannidis, who is out with an injury this year, who probably would be on this list if he were not injured. But Allen kind of not only combined a little bit of Ioannidis, but also a little bit of Payne, where he is the best blend of these guys in terms of the most well-rounded player on the interior. And again, what I like about him is that quick step and those quick hands to boot. And I feel like this guy really had a breakout year this year. We knew he was good, but he had a breakout year this year versus some of the best offensive lines in the league. He was really producing. Like, just go back and watch the wild card game versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. He was really impressive despite playing a really good offensive line. So Allen speaks for himself, a lot of talent, and very young, another young guy making it high on this list. At number 10, Stephon Tuitt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stephon Tuitt was the hardest guy to rank on this entire list because I really believe like Stephon Tuitt is a top 4 pass rusher at this position, but he's like not as well-rounded, but he also benefits from guys like Hayward. He benefits from a TJ Watt and formerly a Bud Dupree. Tuitt would really be their pass rusher a lot of the times from the inside, while Cam Hayward would be the space eater type player and kind of allow Tuitt to become the monster on the inside that he has become. And it's nothing to take away from Tuitt, it's just maximizing the talents of the players on your defensive line is very smart from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So from that standpoint and that point of view, it's really difficult to rank a guy like Stephon Tuitt because I feel like he is a force as a pass rusher. Again, top 5 pass rusher at this position, no doubt about it, and the numbers back it up. But he's not quite the run defender that these other guys are, and he doesn't really have to take on the amount of blockers and doesn't have the impact that these other guys have in terms of he is the one guy that these offensive lines are really focusing on. But Tuitt's really, really good. He's always stood out to me as that pass rusher because he is a really big guy, but again, quickness. With all of these pass rushers, you see the quickness in their game, and I really feel like with Tuitt, that really stands out to me. So Stephon Tuitt, great player, and I don't think it will be very long until he is the guy that we're talking about in Pittsburgh over Cameron Hayward as he continues to age. Tuitt is kind of just entering his prime and in his prime right now. At number 9, Akiem Hicks of the Chicago Bears. Akiem Hicks is a monster. I love watching Akiem Hicks play. Ever since he got traded to my Patriots in 2015, which I'll say it again. He is one of the worst non-re-signings of Bill Belichick's career. I do not know how they let this guy out of the building. He is a force, right? He goes on to Chicago and becomes a monster of the Midway, period, right? He's just a absolute demon versus the run, swallows people up, but then he's also one of the best power rushers in the sport when it comes to pass rushing. He combines a complete game, and I do feel like when he's not there, you see a noticeable difference in Chicago's defense, and you also see a noticeable difference in guys like Khalil Mack, as Akiem Hicks does kind of sort of take off a little bit of the pressure, and that duo for them has been so dominant when they're on the field that it really just speaks for itself. Their defense is one of the best in the league whenever they have those two guys up front. At number 8, Fletcher Cox of the Philadelphia Eagles. Fletcher Cox has been one of my favorite defensive players in the NFL for a very long time, and it's because Fletcher Cox does things on the football field that only people that actually watch Fletcher Cox will know how good he is. Like, you won't see a lot of what Fletcher Cox does on the stat sheet, but he constantly blows up plays on a regular basis. Like, that's what he did in his prime, and now he's a little bit out of his prime, but when he's on, you still see that magic. You still see that ability of just blowing up offensive lines versus the run game. making just madness for a quarterback to shuffle around in the pocket in the pass game. Fletcher Cox is an absolute monster when it comes to his power game and his strength. He's got to be one of the strongest players in the NFL, and he is a handful for any offensive line still to this day. He might not quite be the top 3, top 2 guy that he used to be alongside Aaron Donald, but he's still phenomenal and still a top 10 player at this position. At number 7, Grady Jarrett of the Atlanta Falcons. Grady Jarrett is one of the most underrated defensive players in the NFL. I feel like because Atlanta's defense sucks so bad, nobody actually talks about the good players on their defense, and Grady Jarrett is just about the only good defensive lineman they have, and just about the only good pass rusher they have. And because of that, I feel like he doesn't get the recognition, but also I give him recognition because he's playing against these offensive lines when they clearly know he's the only guy they have to worry about. And consistently, he's still making plays, he's still creating pressure, he's still getting sacks, and he's still producing. And that speaks to a great defensive lineman. Not only is he very good in the pass game, really coming onto the scene in that Super Bowl loss, but also he's a great run defender. He's a very good run defender. And even when Atlanta has sucked versus the pass, they still kind of maintained a pretty good run defense. And I think a lot of that has to do with Grady Jarrett. At number 6, Cameron Hayward of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I talked about Stephon Tuitt and how I feel like Tuitt could pass Cameron Hayward sometime soon, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I do believe Tuitt is the better pass rusher, but I think Cameron Hayward is the better all-around player, and he does the little things better. He is just such a smart player for this position. He is such a nuanced and refined player. He is a veteran of this league, and just year after year after year, stacking up production on production. And that, to me, just gains the utmost respect for what he's been able to do. He is on a trajectory where he is, like, in the Hall of Very Good. He is on that level to me. And I feel like he's been a top 10 player at this position for a very long time at a consistent pace, at a consistent level. And like I said, he really doesn't have any flaws in his game. Continues to be one of the best run defenders in the league and is still a force in the passing game. Entering the top 5. At number 5, Leonard Williams of the New York Giants. Leonard Williams to me is Richard Seymour in 2021. That's what Leonard Williams is. I absolutely love Leonard Williams. He's one of my favorite defensive linemen in the NFL because he's an excellent pass rusher. Like, you can line him up anywhere on the defensive line and he'll make something happen. He's really grown as a pass rusher as well with the plethora of moves he can really pull off. He's really a deceptive athlete. He's got extreme reach and size and actual height too. I think he's like 6'7"-ish. Like, he's huge and he's powerful and he's patient. And I just don't think he has any flaws in his game. He's excellent versus the run. He's proven to be a 10+ sack guy multiple times. He's one of the league's best. And I feel in New York, he makes everybody around him better. Since he's been there, they have been one of the best interior defensive lines in the league, and I think that's because of Leonard Williams. At number 4, Vita Vea of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, for some, this might be a little high because he barely played last year, but if you look at it and you look at the analytics, based on Vita Vea's performance, he would have been right alongside the elite of the elite, the top of the top at this position, despite being a nose tackle in the league, as a pass rusher and a run defender. I think you could argue he's the best run defender at this position in the league, right? Since he's gotten there, the Bucs have been the best run defense in the league. And I don't think that is really talked about enough. His combination with Devin White and Levante David's speed is just out of this world great. He makes everyone across the line better when he plays. Just look at the playoffs, right? Look at where the Bucs were during the season. In the first 4 to 5 weeks when Vita Vea was playing, they were arguably the best defense in football. They lose Vita Vea in the Bears game. They're okay. They're pretty good defense, but they're not great. They get him back in the playoffs. They blow up the best offenses in the league. They dominate a Super Bowl versus the Chiefs. That's thanks to Vita Vea. He was out of this world in the NFC Championship game. And the crazy thing about Vita Vea is for being such a massive man, like huge, biggest guy on this list probably, he's also very, very quick. So Vita Vea is, to me, probably the guy that not enough people talk about on the defensive side of the football. He is that good. At number 3, DeForest Buckner of the Indianapolis Colts. The only thing I had to answer with DeForest Buckner in 2020 was how much of his success was due to the players around him in San Francisco, and how good is DeForest Buckner truly? Well, he answered those questions, kind of carrying the Indianapolis Colts defensive line, or at the very least, okay, taking them from here to here. That's what DeForest Buckner did for the Colts. He proved to me that he is a one-man wrecking crew, no matter the circumstances, no matter who's around him, no matter the system, and no matter if it's the run or the pass game. He made the Colts much better versus the run, and he made them much more dangerous as a pass rush unit. He has done it, 10+ sacks regularly. He has been a absolute monster, just dominating games. And he's done it now for the past 2, 3, 4 years, where he's been one of the best players at this position, and he's getting better every year, seemingly, even though he left the 49ers and he went to the Colts. And he was the same player, if not better. So, DeForest Buckner, love this guy. Again, a guy with basically no faults, could play on any team and succeed, and that's Buckner. At number 2, Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones just edges out DeForest Buckner because of his dominance as a pass rusher over the last 3 to 4 years. Chris Jones has been the only guy close to Aaron Donald in terms of pass rush productivity. Just off the charts, phenomenal. He was a huge part of their success last year in terms of the defense. Chris Jones is the guy that if they lose that guy, their defense just takes a significant hit, because he carries this defensive line, absolutely carries it on his shoulders as a pass rush guy and even as a run defender. Although he's not one of the better ones at the position, he is just such a beast in the middle that he takes up so much attention for other players. And I do think you see a difference in the run defense with the Chiefs, with Chris Jones in there or with Chris Jones not there. Chris Jones is really good, and I feel like if Aaron Donald didn't exist, we'd be talking about Chris Jones as like the best player at this position of his generation. But the fact is, Aaron Donald does exist, so it kind of sucks for Chris Jones. But Chris Jones is a Super Bowl champion, and we'll see if he could take the Chiefs defense back to the Super Bowl next year. At number 1, you guessed it, Aaron Donald. Do I even have to say anything? He might be the best defensive player of all time when it's all said and done. I know that it's hard to get past LT, but if there's anybody that can do it, it is Aaron Donald. You could argue he's the best player in football. His dominance over the course of his career, basically since his rookie season. After his rookie season, he's been the best player at his position every single year he's been in the league. He's been a Pro Bowler, he's been an All-Pro, he's been a Defensive Player of the Year multiple times, and he has proven to be a dominant force no matter who he's playing, no matter who's around him. He elevates everybody on the team, doesn't matter the scheme. Aaron Donald is a machine, and he's still in his prime. Those are my top 20 interior defensive linemen in the NFL heading into 2021. If you enjoyed, make sure you do spike that like button and subscribe for more. Remember, on Patreon, numbers 21 through 32. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.